Hey, Mike the Disgruntled Mechanic here, back with Dad's Massey Harris tractor and can we get her to run. So I think when I left off, without going back and watching my last video, I put points and stuff in it, tried to start it. It would try to start, but it wouldn't keep running. If I sprayed some starting fluid or something less volatile in there, it would try to start, but it always seemed like it was turning slow. So I've done some of this stuff already. I'm just going to walk through it and tell you what I did. That just seems better for me. Once I did it, it's easier to explain it. So I see I got to get my clamp up here and tighten that up. Let me do that, and then I'll be back and we'll go ahead with this. So the first thing I did was I took the spark plug out because, yes, and these are 7/8 spark plugs. Somebody over on CP the Tool Addicts in one of the chats mentioned if anybody had seen a 7/8 spark plug. Well, this is, because my 13/16 won't fit. So I took the spark plug out. I wanted to get it up on number 1 on compression, so I could see where my number 1 was for sure. So I got my handy dandy whistle. Put her on here. Like I said, it sounds a little better now with the turning over because I did some other things which we'll discuss, but I want to show you what I did here. So what I did was you listen for the whistle and then you're up on number 1 compression. So we'll turn it over once or twice and we'll see where we get the compression. That was it right there. Let's do it again. Okay. And it has pretty good compression because then I took it and I checked all the cylinders and all of them had about 90, which I think is about right for this. So that should be up on number 1. I'm not sure if it's top dead center or not, but it'll give us, it's close enough. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take off the distributor cap. Let me get a better angle here. So I marked where number 1 is going right there. So when we take it off, it should be, it's right to the, right of that clip. So let's remember that. I'm going to have to put the camera down and take that cap off. Well, maybe I can take it off, but it's going to be all over the place. So let's just take the cap off, then we'll come back. Remember, we're just real close to that keeper right there. Okay, so when you're going to time this, what you got to remember, this is a engine out of a 101 Junior. So what it says here is not low-grade fuel is 3/8 of an inch before top dead center to top dead center is when it's supposed to fire. Ignition timing full retard, it says. So low-grade fuel, it would fire top dead center to 3/8 inch after top dead center. So with doing that, you got to be careful what you're looking at here, because I'm going to show you why I say that. So what it did was, number 1 is up on compression, which places our rotor right there. So number 1 is here where it fires. So it fired here. Our rotation is counterclockwise on the distributor, which is this way. Firing order is 1, 3, 4, 2. So it fired the 3/8 roughly before top dead center. That's where it fired. Now we're on top dead center and our rotor is approximately there. After being pretty sure the timing was on and everything was okay there and it was firing like it should be and I had all that correct, I did a compression test. With all the plugs out, when I was turning it over, it still seemed to turn rather slowly. So if your timing's right and you have a brand new battery in, what's the next thing? has to be some kind of battery connection, right? Well, that's where we went next, and I'll show you what I did. So when I started this project, I cleaned off the terminals, and of course I cleaned off, the new battery, I like to clean those terminals just to make sure I did that. And I cleaned these terminals because there was corrosion on them, so we cleaned it all up, figuring everything was good. But when I took it apart back here, both of them, it was almost like rust. It wasn't really corrosion. So we cleaned all that up. When we did that, we cranked the tractor over, and here's what we heard. Now, that's turning over great, so everything's good. So we were assuming maybe it was fuel, but I wanted to make sure everything else was right. So next, it was on to the carburetor and trying to start it another way. So next, it was on to the carburetor. This is an updraft carburetor. It gravity feeds fuel to it, and it gets sucked up into the intake and into the engine, and away you go. So what I did while it was turning over good, and it seemed to be, was I took off this air intake hose from off the carburetor, and I sprayed in, and somebody gave me this tip rather than starter fluid, I sprayed in silicone spray. It is combustible enough, and it'll actually fire. If I kept spraying spray in, it would pick up and it would run. And just it was getting gas, plenty of gas to the carburetor, but it wouldn't run. So the next step was to rebuild the carburetor, which is what I did. And I'm going to walk you through that and show you what I found. So I bought a rebuild kit for it, and I hope you can see this. I don't know how well it's going to show up when I do this, but what I liked about it was it gives you the types up here of carburetors, and down here for reassembly it gives you special instructions of what to do when you rebuild this. So the one thing that I found, I'll back up a bit. Here is your float. Now I wanted to make sure these floats can get pinholes in them, and then gas will leak into them and the float won't be balanced correctly. So what I did was, first thing, you just sort of shake it because they're hollow inside, it's a float, and listen for anything. I didn't hear it. But then what I did was I put it in a bowl of water and looked for small air bubbles, and I didn't see any, so I was pretty confident that everything was good. So then on the bottom of the carburetor itself, I took out all these pieces. Number 24 is the main nozzle on the A and B. That's what I had. I sprayed carb cleaner down through it. So I cleaned all those out, and then up here on the top part, I took all the jets and everything out, and the floats. Now, one of the things I noticed when I took it apart was this here needle valve seats into this jet, and there's a spring with it. And if you see here, there's a little knob on the bottom, and that knob, the spring goes on and it sets on your float. What I found when I took mine out is my needle valve looked like this. There's no knob up top, no spring. So I figured since it was in the kit, it may be an updated part. So I put this in and I assembled it with the other one in with the spring on it. And then of course I put it all together. The good part, like I said about this, is it shows you what your float level is supposed to be and how your float is supposed to be set at the 1/4 inch, all of them. Mine was right on. So 1/4 inch, they give you a little measuring thing, cardboard one, which is pretty cool. So 1/4 inch would be 8/32. And then it tells you how to adjust your idle screw, your this here one, is called your needle power adjustment for the Type B carburetor. It tells you how to set up. So we got all that set up, and I turned on the gas, and once we got it all back together, I'll show you what happened. So before we got to the grand finale, what I forgot to mention was how to take this carb off of the intake, which there's really not a lot to it. You got your air intake hose here, you just loosen that clamp, that pulls off. Next I went here and I loosen that screw and I loosen this other screw. Your cable comes out of there and then it comes out of here, that's that. Then on this rod here, you got an inside nut, and you just hold with a wrench here, take that inside nut off. Come over here, take off your fuel supply, of course, loosen that, take that off. Then you got two nuts up here to take off that takes the carburetor off. That was pretty much it. Then to separate the top from the bottom, you have one screw over there, one here, two in the back at approximately, straight back from those. You got those two, and you got a gasket in there, and you have a gasket when you take the carburetor apart. And that's pretty much it. And that kit luckily included all of that, so we were good to go. All right, let's get to the grand finale. I actually have a clip that I took with my phone of the actual start after I did all that, and I'll show that, the hood's off and everything. So that was actually the start right after I did that with the carburetor rebuild. I had to do some adjustment to the choke because that was a little bit out, but we're gonna start it now, and then it's gonna have its first ride out of this garage in 15 years. All right, let's make sure the gas is on. And my brother-in-law Ed stopped by to hear me start this. He's the one who actually put the engine out of his 101 Junior into this tractor for Dad many, many moons ago. How long ago do you think that was, Ed?
Oh boy.
Because Dad's been gone frickin' 14 years now.
Probably.
So that was well before that.
Probably 1987, 88.
It was probably right after you moved back into your new house.
Yep.
Not too long. All right, so now I'm going to try and move it out of here. Oh yeah, you said the one tire was low. We didn't pump that up. All right, let's put a halt to this, pump the tire up, and then we'll do it. I'm not going to move it with the flat tire. See if we can get it out of the ruts that it's worn in. So Pop has pretty sure he did it, or maybe it's factory. There's a mark on there where it's supposed to be. We'll give it full choke. Gas is on. Here we go. Yep, the rut held her up. Interesting. Pop would be proud. He would be happy. Okay, so there it is. That's the finale. We got Pop's tractor running. There's something, my brother-in-law and I were discussing it. We said we think the reason the hood was raised was for some reason we had to put the other radiator in. And I don't know if something's rubbing on that or what, but every once in a while it's making a noise in the front there. It sounds like something's rubbing. We'll have to check that out. It stalled there a little bit, but I think as I run it and she gets back into the running mode, she'll be good. So this is Mike, Disgruntled Mechanic, saying thanks for watching. Just remember, if you can get somebody else to do it, you're probably better off. See you next time. Bye. So we decided to test Dad's old generator that he used to run the house with. I think it's a 3,000 watt, not much more than that. He'd run the furnace and stuff off of it. That hasn't been ran since the tractor's been setting. Oh, 5,300, more than what I thought. What we got, a light to plug into it, and we'll see if it works. I'll give my brother-in-law the honors in case he gets shot. Plug her in. Woohoo! We have light. Look at that. Awesome. Another generator, another source.